Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to talk about recognizing significant digits. What could be more fun than that? I can think of nothing, but I'm sure you can think of a lot of things. So today, our learning target is I can recognize significant digits. Now, what are significant digits? Significant digits are those digits in a number that we consider significant. Those are the ones that we consider to be important. Now, right now we're going to learn to identify them. We'll talk about why they're important later, once we kind of get a grip on what they actually are. So make sure you have a way to take notes because you'll need these in class. And you never know, I may ask for them, and if you don't have them, that would be evil. So hold on and let's get ready to go. We're going to start easy here and then we'll get more difficult. So write this down so that you'll know it, and make sure you get your examples down. Non-zero digits are always significant. That means anything that's not a zero is important. Now down here on my answer that I've done for you, you're going to see I've got sig digs or sig figs. Sig figs are just significant figures, so you can use either one interchangeably. I have a habit of saying sig digs because I like the way it sounds. So the first one that you have is 61.4. That's the first number that we're going to look at. In 61.4, there are 1, 2, 3 numbers. None of them are zeros. So that makes this easy because everything in there is going to be significant. So in 61.4, there are, as this says, 3 significant digits, sig digs. So now let's look at this lovely number here, 85,273. In this number, there are no zeros. That means everything is significant. But lucky us, it's not a problem. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits in this number. So there are, look at the sloppy writing, 5 sig digs. All there is to it. So as long as it's non-zero, not a problem. Rule number 2, and away we go. Any zero, now we're going to talk about those zeros because those zeros are an issue, they're a problem. Any zeros between two significant digits are significant. In other words, if I have a zero between any other two numbers, that makes that zero significant, important. We're going to count it. In the notes that you're going to get in class, the sheets that you're going to see, it's going to say that they're captured. I like to say they're stuck and they can't get out. It's like being in jail. So we're stuck between these other two numbers and there's no place to go. So in this number, 3,109, there are 4 significant digits because these are non-zero numbers, digits, and this one is stuck between 2 non-zeros, which makes it also significant. So there are 4. Now let's look at this lovely thing here, 73,004. Well, 7 and 3 and 4 are all significant because they're non-zero. Now I've got these 2 zeros that are stuck here between the 3 and the 4. Because they're stuck, that makes them significant. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. I didn't do that on purpose. It just seems to be the number of the day. So that's the second rule. Now we're going to look at the third rule for recognizing significant digits, and this one also applies to 0. Like I said, 0 is the hardest because sometimes it is significant and sometimes it isn't. In a second we're going to look at when it's not, but let's stick right now to looking at when it is, and it's all going to make sense to you hopefully in a minute. Okay, a final 0 or trailing 0 in the decimal portion only are significant. So what that means is after a decimal, and you can see my decimal right there, the zeros that are on the end are significant. We know this 0 is significant because it's captured, it's stuck between those two numbers. These right here we're going to ignore, okay? I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So when I go through and I look, I have non-zero digits, and then I have this one that's captured, so I know it's significant, and I have this one on the end after a decimal way over here. So that makes 5 significant digits, again with the 5. Okay, so let's look at the next one. I have a 7 and a 9, which I already know. I have 2 trailing or final zeros after a decimal over here. We're not going to look at these, okay? So when I look to see how many I have, I know these are significant. And I know these are significant because they're on the end. So after a decimal, and a decimal is over here. So when I count, I have 4 significant digits. Okay, now we're going to look at when zeros are not significant digits. The first rule for when they're not is when they're space holding zeros in numbers less than 1. In other words, numbers with a decimal, like this one right here. When I change, we'll get it right. There it is. This decimal right here, okay? So these zeros are just holding the space. They don't count as significant. The 8 and the 6 are non-zeros. This 0 is trapped or stuck or captured. This is a trailing 0. So you have 4 significant digits in this number. Okay? Now we're going to look at this one. These right here are like the one at the top. They're just holding space, so I can cross them off. And I suggest when you do this, you do the same. Cross them off. This is the first number that is not a 0. The first digit that is not a 0. 2s are always significant. These are trailing zeros. They are always significant if they're trailing, so there are 3 significant digits in that number. We have 1 time in decimals when zeros are not significant, and we have 1 time in whole numbers when they're not significant. In decimals, trailing zeros are significant. Let me mess with your head. In whole numbers, they are not significant. So, in the number 300, I have 2 trailing zeros, 2 zeros at the end. They are not significant. The only digit that is significant is the non-zero, which is 3. In 75,000, we have 3 trailing zeros. Those zeros at the end are not significant because this is a whole number. So we only have 2 non-zero digits, which are 7 and 5, and that's it. So your recap of sig-dig rules is like this. Non-zero digits are always sig-digs. Zeros between sig-digs or trailing in a decimal are significant. Zeros used as space holders at the beginning of a decimal, and trailing zeros on whole numbers aren't sig-digs. So you need to make sure that you have your notes down. There will be some problems to work on this Know Me lesson. Make sure you get those turned in and come in tomorrow ready to do some practice with your group. And I'll see you then. Bye.